So often in spiritual groups, there's always this argument that comes about, and the people that I tend to take seriously aren't really into this sort of thing, but they're always like, you know, oh, if you're spiritual, you'll realize that we're all doing the same work and trying to gatekeep and talk about different things that are like measurable of how spiritual someone is. That, that's not spiritual kind of thing. Um, there's a couple different versions of this. There's oh, I had a realization that we're all the same, therefore spirituality is almost incidental. That's one thing. That's like, um, spirituality is just the realization that none of this matters, and just I think it goes a little bit, the implication that I'm inferring that there's a little bit of an Advaita Vedanta sort of nullification of the self type type format of spirituality going on, like, the things that you think are you are just distractions, things like that. I don't believe that. Some of that's true, but I think it kind of throws the baby out with the bathwater. I think there's something that's intrinsically you, and once you get rid of the distractions, you're like, oh, this is me. Okay, like in Thelema, we could talk about gaining conversation with your guardian angel, holy guardian angel, actually, which is uh, just a metaphor, really. Um, it's more than that, but the term is overly grand, and I forget what the reason for that is. Um, so that's one version that I've seen of this. There's another version where it's like, oh, you think you're better than others because you've had experience X, Y, or Z, or that you know more. But spiritually, you should understand that we're all souls. We're all in this together, and you shouldn't be like bragging about the things that you do, or trying to make yourself some kind of arbiter of who's good enough or something. There's an element where this is like fair enough, because there's a lot of different ways of doing things. Some people are occult dabblers and go really far. I knew some people who had a lot of power, but like were practically their methodology was just completely their own and had nothing to do with any ancient cultures. Almost a little bit like schizophrenic. Um, which I believe that if you do magic, like if you do magic, not spirituality, not mysticism, if you do magic, those deep visualizations, those deep out of body type things, which is a little bit not technically what magic means in its fullness, but I think when we talk magic and being a magician and being a powerful adept, this is sort of what I'm listening for. People that have quote unquote like real power. I mean, how powerful are you if you're not able to get on the astral plane, if you're not able to go on the other side and mess with things in their primordial form before they materialize? To me, that's a big point of doing magic. It's sort of on a sort of the maybe highbrow magic. I don't want to say high magic, like all the terms are loaded practically. But then like if you're just doing spells, that's more like, and putting things in jars, burning candles, that's more like witchcraft. It's also very powerful and effective. I think having craft and some of the higher, more I would say more astral, more high consciousness based skills, it's good to do both. And sometimes having the high sort of, for my intensive purposes of what I'm saying now, the high magic with the low magic. The high magic, if you're good in the high magic, the low magic will be much more powerful. Um, I'm actually afraid to do things a lot of the time because I don't want to just blow it up in my face. Like I want to be sure. Anyways, So this is where I take issue at this sort of second version of this we're all the same criticism, or you know, we're all somewhere on the journey. Don't be gatekeeping. Don't be telling someone that they're not doing it right or something. I think if someone's wrong, it's good to tell them they're wrong, because even if they don't take it nicely, it'll still get into their consciousness that someone thinks differently, and hopefully they can think about that. Even if me or someone else is wrong, telling someone that they're wrong, I, I think it's still conversing is better than not conversing. Just gassing each other up constantly. I think we should gas each other up as magicians. I think we should encourage each other's, borderline schizophrenic delusions. I mean, they're organized, right? And we see the same thing. So it's not actually a delusion. If we weren't seeing the same things, it would be more questionable. But the fact that I can talk to other magicians and it really lines up a lot makes it a lot more interesting, and something someone can put their name on, or feel good about in that way. I would say, and just a quick tangent here, I would say a lot of people who are schizophrenic, it's not that they're seeing something real, they can't digest it. I talk a lot about digestion with these sorts of things because I think it's a good way to look at it. Anyways, so this second version, though, where it's like, it seems less of a point within itself and more of a reaction um, to some people being maybe a little overly gatekeepy, or some people being too. They talk about the texts a lot, like various Freemasonic texts, various, you know, there's a couple texts that are related to the Rosicrucians, or like, as I've heard it, Rosicrucian treatises. I haven't read them. They're PDFs on my computer, but I don't know. I'm not that interested at the moment. Um, so people will read up on the stuff that's like, acceptable. That's the accepted authority stuff. I mean, yeah, I don't take that sort of thing that seriously. I think that is gatekeeping, and a lot of those people don't have the experience to back it up. Because the people that have the experience to back it up are they see me and they're like, they tend to like me, a lot of people are readers with an opinion. Well, if you've just read stuff and you haven't done it, you don't actually know what the symbolism means, right? So I think um I think some of these criticisms, I think this version of the all we're all the same, um we're all somewhere on the path, I think is halfway decent. I think there is some good criticism that comes through, and then people just deflect it with some of these very cheap spiritual deflections, really. Um, you know, and yeah. Anyways, so this particular post, the reason I'm doing a video on it though is because most of the time this one was compelling. That's what it is. Um, and I wanted to give some attention to that. It was a compelling post. The poster was talking about spirituality as if being like a worker, and he said he was relating it to like he said pick up a tool and do the work. I thought that was really interesting. I at first I was kind of frustrated with it because I'm just so used to a lot of this nonsense. I'm not absolutely sure if he falls into some of those categories, which is why I'm making the video to parse out my thoughts. But also, I think it's good to go over some of these things. It's probably overdue for me to go over some of these things. It's just, to me, a lot of times when it comes up, we're all the same. You know, we're just all souls having an experience. We're all crystallized source experiencing itself. I always find that so hammy and uncompelling that I don't really give it any attention. But this one was, like I said, was interesting. I I was thinking about it because of like, there's something here. I felt it was quite a Saturnian, um, it was quite a Saturnian spiritual perspective. It's like, because Saturn is very much about humility. And it's funny because Saturn's also a little bit about gatekeeping. So it's a little bit mixed in that way. But, pick up a tool. Saturn is service. If Saturn was a person, Saturn is the worker. Saturn is the public servant. So the way he was describing spirituality sounded very much like, we're workers, and I have a similar view actually. I would make the effort to communicate what spirituality is in a little bit more of a grand way. I think it's more helpful to look in the mirror and understand and see it as being grand. I think being a little bit trying to make it too mundane is, I don't know what use that would serve. To me, it's helpful for me to impress upon myself the importance and weight of these things, so that that's something playing at the back of my mind when I think about going on the astral plane, when I go on the astral plane, when I'm active on the astral plane, when I do a spell, when I'm considering, some nasty is giving me trouble and I want to do some offensive magic. I'm understanding because it's grand, that impresses upon me a bit more responsibility about it. So, but it is, it's something, a bit of a mix of sort of Jupiter and Saturn, because Jupiter is grand. Jupiter is maybe even a little bit gatekeepy. Jupiter, Kapil Raj said this, and I thought this was really cool. I really like Kapil Raj. KRS, KRS Astrology is his channel. Very, very good astrologer. But he teaches a lot of spiritual things through astrology as well. It's really neat. Like, he'll be talking about some placements, and he will then describe some spiritual truth that that is being active in some placement. Great channel. He was talking about how Jupiter is like, if there's a class, Jupiter only cares about the one student. He gives a test at the beginning of the class. One person passes it out of 10, and he says, this is the student that I want. And he was comparing it to Venus, because Venus and Jupiter are both gurus. Venus is the guru of the demons, Shukradeva, and Brihaspati, or Jupiter, is the guru of the gods. So he was explaining that Jupiter, a teacher that only teaches like the really smart kids, you can just give the really smart kid a book and he'll teach himself. They need very little guidance. It's Jupiter, or Venus, is much more impressive because he's like the teacher with like all kinds of diagrams and all kinds of things you can hold, like little toys that teach it. And he'll take the dumb student and explain it in the absolute most basic terms until he understands. And I thought this was very funny because I kind of have moved more into exclusivity. I think I've kind of given up on trying to teach, quote unquote normal people anything. They're so unattracted to this sort of thing. I think that's gonna change, but still, yeah. I think there's others doing work that's more. There's a lot of work that's basic. I think that it's very saturated, the basic of the occult. I think having a little bit of a more intermediate, that's what's missing right now. And I feel my stuff is more intermediate. I don't think I'm this, great master, but I'm also not a beginner. So, and not dumbing things down, but explaining some things that are pretty complicated, and okay, if you know the basics, my stuff is just sort of the next kind of logical step. But I don't feel good about teaching like the basics of astrology. Oh, Venus is love. Like, everyone knows that. And I see that a lot on these channels where we're just rehashing the basics over and over and over, or someone's on like some schizo rabbit hole of like, deep into some gnosis that nobody's really aware of. And you can tell when someone's going a bit crazy when they don't, or I don't know, you look crazy when you don't make the attempt to connect it to things that are known. Okay, making a bold claim, making a big assertion is, I think that's okay, and I can assume there's some practice behind it that's making that, something that you believe, something that someone believes. But if there's no attempt to connect it to things that are generally understood by, you know, maybe people at an intermediate level could look at it and say, yes, I see this a lot, and I think that's not great. I think people should make more of an attempt to show. I heard this recently on a short, to show your math, to show your work. I thought that was so interesting. Show your math is what it was. So, yeah. So I think we should do that. I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of people do. I've seen it that a lot of people come from on high pontificating. Oh, hey, I was part of AMORC. I'm so fucking smart. Listen to me. Or worse than that, I've read a butt ton of books and I know stuff. Or some people are psychonauts and oh, I've done a shitload of DMT and I'm so much smarter. That one's a little more viable because that is a spiritual experience. They're doing, it's something, I mean, someone who does, a psychonaut sees more than I do, a little bit. If I were to really focus on OBEs, on out of body experiences, on astral projection, and make that my one thing in life, like do it as if it was a job, I would be better off than psychedelics users. I would see more than them, but for the time being, they see a little bit more than I'm able to. People with schizophrenia also, but people with schizophrenia, it's some process of interpreting it that most people don't know how to do. So schizophrenic people are useless to most people sorry, I shouldn't say that. Most people are not going to find the gold in what a schizophrenic person says because we don't have a cultural understanding of that, So anyways, I get the criticism of, don't put others down kind of thing. I will say, someone who's read, The Secret and some Manly P. Hall stuff and has a lot of head knowledge, maybe the Secret Teachings of All Ages. A lot of people really like that book. I don't think that takes you as far as, if that's all you've done, then you've just read some books. You know what I mean? Or if you went to a temple and you had some experiences, you had some experiences. Let's take things for what they are. Let's take things for what they are, and then, let's judge through that. So I think that there is some room for judgment, because if there's no room for judgment, you know, is the one weird aunt in the family who went to a temple and had a single astral projection experience and won't shut the fuck up about it, is that someone we all need to pay attention to and put a lot of emphasis on and really focus on and build a cult around her. And she needs to sit down and write some books and we can go make a publishing company and publish them, or where's the scale? And I'm blowing it out of proportion to show sort of the logical extent of it, right? But like, what's the logical limit of this line of thinking? Because, okay, if we're all tools, or if we're all workers with our particular tools doing the thing, okay, if I have the the DeWalt deluxe toolkit with every little fixture and fitting, then I'm a more valuable worker. That's, what I mean? That's kind of my criticism of the post. And is like, if I'm able to do more things and I'm able to have more experiences, maybe I am a little farther along, or maybe someone else is more, farther along. And it's not. There's a lot of different kinds of experiences, so it's hard to measure. I get that. I think that's why I thought it was interesting, and I think that a lot of gatekeeping does happen. That's negative. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely significant differences in quantity and quality of spiritual experience types, everything, so it's one other thing I wanted to talk about in the post. Oh yeah, just a quick aside. So this was about this person. I'm inferring that they're really preferring the Gnostic way of viewing things, the like medieval, or not medieval, but the Jewish Gnosticism, uh, sort of OG Gnosticism, I guess, way of viewing it, of like the system's predatory, it's destroying us, it's awful, la 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 la. Just a quick aside to say I disagree with that. So I just don't feel like it's true, for one thing. Um, what I think is that I think that a lot of us here that are more spiritually developed are probably actually like uh, of higher spiritual rank, maybe to say even angels, or aliens, depending on how you look at it. And we're here doing something. I don't think it's as much about humans as the humans. I think, in my opinion, aren't the hero of the show. And I think that does make a system that you can see quite pessimistically. Um, I don't think it's that pessimistic of a situation. I think, um, I mean, I've had experiences where, like, basically I found liberation. Um, I could see outside of the matrix. I can do that without. It doesn't come all the time, but I get these little windows I can see out, and it's interesting. It's not. It's not like you get out of the matrix and there's never problems outside. Oh, you go into the pleroma and it's just wonderful, and there's no problems at all. I think that's wishful thinking.